So I'm going to try this one more time. Character creation with me is pretty straightforward. You have 4 major categories. Body, which contains dexterity, constitution, speed, and strength. Charisma, which includes deception, performance, persuasion, and reputation. Perception, which includes investigation, insight, observation, and reflex. And knowledge, which includes meteoro, geo, bio, and socio. There are a couple of things that are new, so I'm just going to go over them real quick. You're familiar with dexterity, how nimble you are, constitution, how well you take a hit, speed, how fast you move, strength, how hard you hit, charisma, deception, how well you lie, performance, how well you sing or act, persuasion, how easily it is for you to get people on your side of a situation or an argument. Reputation, however, is new. That's one of mine. So with reputation, if you have a high score, it means people have heard of you. If you have a low score, it just means that nobody knows who you are. If nobody knows who you are, it just means people don't have any reason to trust you, but they also don't have any reason to distrust you. So then that relies solely on whether the person you're encountering tends to trust strangers or kill strangers. So that's what happens if you have a low reputation score. If you have a high reputation score, however, then that depends on what your reputation is. So say, for example, you are a feared sky pirate, okay? You have a high reputation score as a feared sky pirate. The mention of your name strikes fear into the hearts of leaguesmen. You get advantage on intimidation situations and things like that because they've heard of you, they know you're a badass, right? But it also means people aren't going to trust you. So suppose you need a certain amount of information or something from someone, and you try to use your name because you have a good reputation. Well, no. See, they've heard of you, they know you're a sky pirate, they know you kill people, they're not going to trust you at all. So that's how reputation can be a little bit of a double-edged sword. Same thing goes for if you're, well known for being law-abiding. If someone has something, has information or something that that you need to know, they might not share it because they're afraid that they'll get in trouble with you. Then perception, investigation, how well you pick up on clues around you. This includes if you're doing an actual investigation or tracking something, anything like that. Insight is how well you pick up on clues on people's faces and their body language, how well you can understand what they're thinking behind what they're saying. Observation is just your base perception stat, basically. It's how well you see things, hear things, smell things, I don't know. How well you pick up on things around you. Reflex is again one of my own. That is basically how easy it is for you to see things and respond to them. It might be a little bit in the dexterity stat, but I think dexterity is more for fine motor movements, not necessarily how quickly you're able to move in response to incoming stimuli. So for example, someone is swinging a sword at you, your reflex will determine whether you're able to dodge that sword or whether you just stare at it blankly as it comes swinging towards you. Then knowledge, so I've separated these into 4. However, it is worth noting that the big 2 are meteorology and geology, because there is a feud going on between sky scholars and earth scholars. The problem is that earth scholars have been sort of lumped in with biologists and sociologists all together. So yeah, if you're a meteorologist, you're sort of highly respected, like someone who works at NASA. If you're a geologist, biologist, or sociologist, you're just sort of, I don't know, scum of the earth. That's not to say that your science isn't worth things, though. Obviously, all realms of science are to be valued. It just depends on what you know. So there are meteorologists have control over one of the big cities called Santafrax, and they have allied themselves with a good number of significant other parties, which means that Earth scholars have basically been hunted. they've been persecuted, driven out of their homes. So a lot of Earth scholars, those who were once living in Santafrax, are now living in the sewers of Undertown, which is the town directly below Santafrax. Santafrax is floating. They don't have sewers. Well, they do have tunnels, but nobody lives there except for Glisters. So they're living in the sewers of Undertown because they're hunted, basically. However, a good number of Earth scholars have founded a safe haven to the... I'm getting into world building. That's not what I'm supposed to be doing here. So basically, if you're a meteorologist, you are, you have, what's the word? You have an advantage. People will respect you. And if you're a geologist, biologist, or sociologist, each of those interests comes with a certain amount of very useful information. If you're a geologist, you'll know things like how flight rocks work, and you'll be able to tell things about if you go into the Underdark, or let alone the Underdark, you'll know where you are much better. If you're a biologist, you'll know things about the flora and fauna of the world around you. Specifically, if you end up in, if you end up in the Underdark, it'll be useful too, because most people don't know the creatures there. You might. And if you end up in the deep woods, which you most definitely will have to pass through the deep woods for a significant amount of time, you'll be more prepared for what you come across there. You'll know what a blood oak is. You'll know, what a screeching fowl is. You'll know what things are and how to counter them. Sociology means that you'll be prepared for, the cultural differences. So, if you end up among the Shrikes, you'll know not to look them in the eye, or else you get killed. You'll know, depending on what city you end up, if you end up in Jakari, you'll know the specific dinner manners that will keep you from getting poisoned, things like that, which someone else will most likely not be prepared for. So that's basically how much you know about the world around you. So those are our stats, and now for how to count them. I'm kind of lucky. I have a huge amount of dice, so I can just sort of roll them all at once, which I did. It's over to the side, but I'm not going to show that because it's a mess. So I'm just going to copy over my stats real quick. A quick note, I rolled a 1 when doing these 4. When you're counting the first 4 stats, any 1s that you get, you are able to re-roll. You roll 4 dice first, just those 4. You set them aside, and you know that those are body, charisma, perception, and knowledge. You can't trade them out for anything else, it's just those 4. But if you roll a 1, you are able to re-roll that. So, when, hold on, let me think about this real quick. I rolled, originally, a 1, 3, 5, and 6. Then I re-rolled the 1, and I got another 3. So it's 3, 3, 5, and 6. So now I can decide, well, which stat is going to be the most important? That one's going to be getting 6. So, for this specific character, I think that is going to be knowledge. Second would be, body. And then the other 2 3s go in charisma and perception. Alright, so you see how that works? And then the rest of my numbers, I'm just going to put in real quick without going into them. Basically, you just decide what is most important, and you put your highest numbers there. You know, I'll probably put the link to when I finish this at the bottom. So you can, I guess, scroll down and skip to that time mark. Okay, so now that I've got these numbers sorted out, I just move everything across. So 5 plus 5 makes my score for dexterity 10. 5 plus 3, constitution becomes 8. That's sloppy as hell, but okay. Speed is 10, strength is 11, deception is 4, performance is 4, persuasion is 4, and reputation is 7. Investigation is 6, insight is 7, observation is 7, reflex is 8, Meteoro. Alright. Hold on. Meteoro is 7, Geo is 8, Bio is 12, and Socio is 9. Okay. So, as you can see based on this, the lowest possible score you can get would be a 2. Oh, sorry, no, a 3. Because you would re-roll any 1s you get here, and you add that to the lowest score, which would be 1 here. So the lowest you can get here is a 2, lowest you get here is 1, which means the lowest score you get here would be a 3. And then the highest you can get is a 12, which would be a 6 and a 6, which you see I have there in Bio. So as you can see here, my character is most likely a biologist, with a decent amount of knowledge in the other sciences, which you get from the base stat of 6 in knowledge. So that just means that because you are a scientist in any sort of science, you have a basic knowledge of the other sciences. She's a biologist, but she's probably a field biologist because she has a very high body ability. She's, you know, very strong, very dexterous, very fast, and she can take a hit. So she's probably someone who lives in the woods, studying the world around her. Her name is Magda Berlitz. You will most likely meet her eventually. She's very kind, but she's also very socially awkward, so she has low charisma abilities. And she is able to perceive things, while she has a low base perception stat, she makes up for that with moderately good stats here. So she is able to see things, but it's not her best ability. She's got good reflexes, though, compared to everything else. And that's how you make your stats for your character. As you level up, you'll be able to add things to stats, and you'll get items which increase your abilities. It's a little bit more complicated when we get into that, so I'm not going to do that quite yet. However, there is one thing I'm going to mention. Each character, based on their background or history or career, gets 2 bonuses. Well, it depends on the person. Usually it's 2 bonuses. Each bonus will just give you a +2 to any one stat. So suppose this particular character, she is a field biologist, basically. So she would get an additional +2 bonus to her biology knowledge, and she would get an additional +2 bonus to her strength. Because she spends all that time out in the field, she is, very physical. So she gets very high strength and very high biology knowledge. So that would just be +2 to each. I have specific names for each of these bonuses, but I really don't remember what they are. I have them written down somewhere. So each character will get 2 bonuses of 2 points for 1 stat each. I hope I said that right. I don't know if I did. There are some exceptions. For example, I know people who spend a lot of time aboard skyships will get a +1 bonus to 3 stats, in addition to the +2 to 1 stat. So that's usually, if I remember correctly, they get a +1 to reflex, a +1 to speed, and a +1 to dexterity. And then they would usually get a +2 to geology knowledge because they're working with a flight rock. So that's how you would end up with a character that's versatile, basically. I hope I explained this well. I'm not so sure I did, but it's better than not explaining it at all. You'll probably be using these stats quite frequently. For me personally, when I'm making my NPCs, I'll make the stats up on this side, and then refine everything and put more information on the back here. So this is going to be Magda Berlix. She is a field biologist based out of Lake Landing. She is married to Xanth. Well, I'm not going to give you that information. Basically, she's real cool, though. I really like her. Okay. Peace out.